Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you're listening around the world. This is Sedona Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Intuitive Guidance with Lindsay Marino. Today is Monday, September 7th, 2015. Tonight's show is going to be a great one. I've been so excited to talk to this guest for a while now. I keep seeing his book pop up on my computer screen, and I knew that I needed to have him on the show again. For those of you who don't remember, I want you to go back into my website after this show, and you can click on the radio button and look at the old shows. And I just talked to my guest for a couple of seconds on air, and he said it was about a year and a half ago, which is crazy how fast things fly by. His name is Garnet Schulhauser, and he wrote the book Dancing Forever with Spirit. And we're going to talk about that book tonight. But the other book that we talked about on the show previously was a story. For those of you who are listening, you might remember the story about how he was at work and he ran into a homeless man who he later found out was a guide for him. So it was such an amazing interview the last time that he came on the show. It was really interesting. I could talk about this for hours. But before I introduce him, I just want to remind you, some of you have been asking me about my mediumship course, which is coming out soon. I am offering something free, a free webinar, free series on really being able to be open to receive messages from the other side and be open to receive this energy that's around us. So if you are interested in that, you can go to lindsaymarino.com. And when you go to lindsaymarino.com, there's a button where it says contact. Let's see. When you go to Lindsay, I'm going to walk you through it just so you know, because there's so many different things on the website. Let's see. Because I want to make sure. Yeah. Click on contact. Put your name and email address in there. And you can just, if you want to check off general inquiry, you could, and just put interested in mediumship course or interested in course or webinar, okay, because I'm going to have some details coming out soon. I don't want you to miss it. And I'm really excited about that. I keep getting asked the question, when are you going to come out with a course on mediumship? And for years, I've been doing one-on-one mentoring, and I took a little bit of a break while I was traveling and doing readings, and I've been nudged. There's been signs that have been coming and people asking, can you do an e-course on this? Because I had my Unlock Your Intuition course that was out previously, and that's coming out again this March for those of you who missed it last year. But this Unlock Your Inner Medium is going to be coming out soon too. So just kind of keep a lookout for that. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And it's interesting because I feel as though we know that the energy is high. We've talked about this practically every show. But I think even more importantly, people are really wanting more information about their life and more information about their purpose. And people aren't settling for their normal everyday jobs that they're not satisfied with. So they're actually thinking, wait a second, this isn't fulfilling me. And I actually just put online, let me see if I can read it to you. I just wrote online a message about not staying in a job that you're not fulfilled with, because this is so important. We so often get stuck in the 9-to-5 grind, and we know that we need to get to a certain point, maybe retirement or, making sure that you put in enough time to get that raise. now, really, in the end, we have to be happy, and we have to have this purpose and love what we do. When I was teaching third grade, I absolutely loved it. The last year or two, I knew that there was things that were shifting, and I knew my heart was pulling out. So it was almost at that point where there was no other option. I want you to be aware of that. When you're feeling that way, there's a reason why you're feeling that way, okay? So make sure that you're definitely taking that into consideration when you're living your life, because when we're working, sometimes it's 8 hours a day, and we need to make sure that it's filled during that time. So I'll just read you my little quote from today on Facebook. Happy Labor Day. Find a job that you love. We have precious time here on earth, and it's not worth wasting your moments working in a job that doesn't fulfill you. So really think about that when you're going throughout your life. Okay, so that was my little rant. But today's guest is Garnet Schulhauser, and he's going to talk about his second book, Dancing Forever with Spirit, describing his most recent adventure with Albert, who appeared in his bedroom one night to guide him on a series of outer body adventures to explore the wonders of the universe, including the Akashic records, distant planets, with fascinating life forms and a human civilization that made the shift to the new Earth. So I want you to actually listen a little bit to Garnet's biography before I introduce him. He used to be a lawyer. He's a retired lawyer who lives near Victoria on Vancouver Island with his wife, Kathy, and his little dog, Abby. And he grew up on a small farm. And after law school, where he practiced corporate law for over 30 years with 2 blue-chip law firms, that's when he moved to Canada. After retiring from his law firm in 2008, he began his new career as an author, and his first book, Dancing on a Stamp, was published in 2012. Since the release of his first book, Garnet has been active with book signing, tours, and speaking engagements, and has been frequent guest on radio talk shows. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Garnet. I can't wait to talk about your book and what's been going on with you.
I'm excited to be here, Lindsay, and on your show once again. The first one was very enjoyable, and I expect this one's going to be even better.
Yes, and I've been talking to a lot of people about you coming on the show, and everyone's so excited to hear about everything that's sort of unfolded since your first book, because your first book had so much content with it that we talked about on the show. So can you tell us a little bit about, those of people that are listening for the first time, about Albert, can you tell us a little bit about how you met him briefly before we get into the second book, Dancing Forever with Spirit?
Absolutely. It happened when I was still practicing law, Lindsay. It was in May of 2007, and I was strolling down the street one day when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a homeless man jumped out in front of me and stopped me in my tracks. And he looked like a typical homeless man, but instead of me taking a sidestep and going around him as I usually would with these people, I was stopped in my tracks because he had these amazing, dazzling blue eyes that were penetrating deep within my soul and sending me this wave of pure, unconditional love that was infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace and security. So it was a wonderful feeling. Anyway, that he then soon disappeared, and I went back the next day to try to find him, and I found him sitting alone on a bench. And I sat down, and we began a dialogue with him. It turned out that his name was Albert, and he was actually one of my spirit guides in disguise. And our dialogue went off and on for several months after that. He told me I was the only guy who could see him in physical form as the homeless man, and that anybody else passing by in the street that day would not have seen him. I would have been sitting there on the bench by myself to them. And he did that because he wanted me to gradually introduce himself into my life. And so he appeared as a physical homeless man, and he said that had he just started talking to me as a voice in my head, which is how we mainly communicated after the first 3 visits, he no longer appeared as in physical form, but we communicated by telepathy. He said that had he just started off by talking to me by telepathy, I probably would have thought I was losing my mind. And he's right. And so that's why he showed up in physical form for the first 3 visits. thereafter we communicated by telepathy. So that dialogue went on for several months, as I said. He asked me to write a book about his revelations, which resulted in my first book, Dancing on a Stamp. So that was the story of my first book. So after finishing my first book, and it was published, I didn't hear from Albert for a few months, and I was beginning to wonder, Lindsay, if he had disappeared from my life. Well, suddenly one night, as you had mentioned in the introduction, I woke up in my bed, and I saw this ghost-like ethereal figure standing in the doorway of my bedroom. And when it moved closer to me, I recognized this figure. It was my old friend Albert in his homeless man disguise, but he was in astral form. And so I was a bit surprised, and I said, "Hi, Albert, what brings you here this time? What's up?" And he said, "I'm here to take you on a series of out-of-body astral adventures to the spirit side and to other places in the universe because I want you to write about what I show you in your next book. And I believe that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So rather than just have me tell you what I want you to write, I want you to see it so you can write about it yourself." And so
I was
a bit surprised. Sorry?
I'm amazed at the story because this is so beautiful, and I know the outer body experiences, how powerful they are, and for you to have the privilege to go and be shown by him is so beautiful.
Absolutely, it was, and I'd never had an out-of-body experience before in my life, so this was all new to me. And so when I heard what Albert had to say, I was a bit, surprised, and I said, do I need to tell my wife where I'm going? Do I need a passport? I mean, how does all this work? And he just smiled and said, "No, you'll be back in your physical body before the morning, and your wife will never know you've been gone anywhere." And so then he just reached out and literally pulled my astral body out of my physical body. I turned around, Lindsay. My body was still sleeping soundly in my bed, and he said, "Come on with me." And he basically took me by the hand. We rose up through the ceiling, up through the clouds, and I got to watch our planet as we moved away from it. Our beautiful planet. We stopped at a point high above Earth. And he let me look back on it, and it was an amazing sight. It was breathtaking. Like, our planet is such a beautiful planet. It was like a jewel pendant floating in the blackness of space. It was really quite an amazing sight. But he didn't let me linger very long. He said, "Come on, we have to go for a trip to the spirit side." So we went through this shimmering doorway that was kind of floating there in space. And as soon as we stepped through it, I found myself standing in this a beautiful meadow, Lindsay. It was like full of lush green grass and majestic trees and wildflowers resplendent in like 1,000 different colors that we don't even see or can't even imagine on our planet, and not even capable of being described in the human language. Amazing place. He led me down the path through this meadow, and we went up a small hill, and at the top of the hill I looked on the other side, and I could see a group of souls waiting for me. Well, they looked like people, but I knew they were souls because they're on the spirit side. And as we walked down the hill and got closer to this group, my heart skipped a beat because I recognized who they were, Lindsay. They were my mother, my father, my brother, my grandparents, and various aunts and uncles who'd already passed over.
My gosh!
I picked up my pace and I sort of rushed towards them. And before I got there, to top it all off, from behind the crowd, my little dog Oscar came running towards me. He had passed away 10 years before. He's a little miniature schnauzer, and he came running towards me with his little tail wagging his whole body to give me a greeting. So it was a wonderful experience. It no doubt solidified in my mind what Albert had already told me, that everyone we're all eternal souls, and that when we die we all go back to the spirit side. So there is my proof. My parents, my brother, and other relatives were all there smiling and waiting to give me a hug. And I had just one misgiving about meeting my mother, Lindsay, not because I didn't love her dearly, but because I was concerned about what she would think about what I had written in my first book, because I wasn't kind to the Catholic Church. I was raised as a Catholic. She was a very strong, devoted Catholic, and she followed all the rules and adhered to all the beliefs. And I had drifted away from that in my 30s and 40s, and in Dancing on the Stamp, I sort of took issue with a lot of, or Albert did, he disclosed a lot of revelations that just took issue with what the Catholic Church taught. I was concerned about what my mother would think of that. But she allayed my fears. She gave me a big hug and said, "It's all okay." She said, if I were still living on Earth, I would be very unhappy with you about what you wrote in your book. But now that I'm on the spirit side, I can see the whole picture, and I agree with everything you wrote. So it was like, what a relief. So that was my initial greeting, and it was a very warm greeting. But then Albert didn't let me linger for very long. He said, "You'll be reunited with all of your relatives later, and certainly after you cross over yourself. But we have business to attend to." So he then led me off towards this white city that was gleaming in the distance, a place that he called Aglaia, which was one of the cities on the spirit side.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went through the main entrance portal of this gleaming white city, and we walked down the main boulevard. And there, the streets were streaming with all kinds of souls dressed in very colorful and different garments from many different ages and countries and eras on Earth. And it was like I was dropped into the middle of a costume ball. Like, it was very colorful. And I said to Albert, what's this all about? He said, he says, souls on the spirit side can appear to others in whatever form they choose. And he said they will often choose to wear a garment from a life that they enjoyed previously on Earth. And that's why there are so many varied garments. And he says that they can change their appearance anytime they want. Or if they choose to, they can just be globes of glowing light, which is really because we're really beings of energy. So that's sort of the natural state. So that was it was really quite amazing. And then we walked down this boulevard and went down a side street, and we ended up in front of this big, beautiful building with white pillars in the front, a place that Albert called the Hall of Wisdom. And we went inside, and in there was a big circular chamber with a high dome ceiling, and there was a horseshoe-shaped table in the middle with 11 souls seated around it. And these souls all had snow-white hair. They had smooth, unblemished, unwrinkled skin, and they were wearing gold robes with white sashes. And Albert explained that this was the Council of Wise Ones, which was the body there on the spirit side that oversaw all the incarnations on Earth. And so the chair of this council, her name was Sophia, spoke to me and said, thank you for coming. We asked Albert to bring you here because we wanted to give you a message to take back to your fellow humans. And so I said, okay, fine, fire away. You give me my marching orders, and I'll take your message back. So she said to me, of course I would. What else would I do? But anyway, no, she was very. She wasn't sort of being bossy or anything. She just said, look, we have a important message for you to take back to your fellow humans. I said, fine. She said that our civilization is at a very crucial point in its development because we've developed very advanced technology, but our spiritual and emotional intelligence has not kept pace. And that means that a lot of times our negative emotions get out of control, which leads to a lot of strife and violence and conflict. And so as a result, we have wars, we have genocides, we have murders, we have terrorist activities, and that's just because our negative emotions are not in control. And she says it's important for us to get those under control because we have the weapons of mass destruction that we can literally wipe off all life from our planet if they get unleashed. And we need to sort of get our act together before that happens because otherwise we're going to destroy ourselves like some of the other human civilizations in our past, like Atlantis and Lemuria and some of the other ones we don't even know about. And so she said that they really wanted to let humans know, and they were doing their best to send the message to humans that we needed to discard our negative emotions like fear, anger, hate, greed, and embrace love and compassion for one another, for our planet, and for all the other creatures that we share our planet with. And that was important. And if we could do that, we'd be able to raise our vibrations. And ultimately, if we raise our vibrations high enough, we can ascend up to Earth in a higher dimension, which some people refer to as the New Earth. And so that was the message. She said that it was important for as many people as possible to be spreading this message. She said that they're sending that message through many, many different channels around the world, like myself, people who write books and blogs, people like yourself, Lindsay, who host radio shows, mediums and psychics, and people who speak at public gatherings. And so their message is coming from many, many different, through many different sources, many different channels, and the intent is to really just spread the message so widely that more and more people will listen to it and become more spiritually enlightened, which is what we need to do to survive as a race.
Yes. So, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I have so many questions. I don't want to cut off your story, though. If there's something else, you can cut me off if it comes to you. But when you were
go ahead and ask
talking
your
about,
questions. Yeah.
Okay. When
yeah, sorry. Go ahead and ask your
about
questions.
Seeing your parents, when you saw them, when you got to visit them, when you were shown your parents, when you saw the dog. Now, when you saw them, because I've had an outer body experience where I was brought to a heavenly place, and I know that just talking about it with you, it's going to be clear to the people that are listening. But did you see them in a telepathic way, or did you see them like they were standing right there and you could actually reach out and hug them, or did you feel them energetically? I know you mentioned it was very colorful with the other people, too.
Yeah, actually, and my parents and relatives were actually just wearing kind of white robes, but their faces appeared very much like I remember them, except sort of more younger and more robust. So, my parents passed away at a more advanced age, but when they appeared to me, they were like sort of in how they would have been in their mid-30s, but they were easily recognizable about me, but they were very robust and happy and healthy. They were just wearing white robes for whatever reason. But yeah, I could actually physically, I felt like I was physically touching them and hugging them.
Yeah.
And they felt very real to me. And so it was like, I know that we're all beings of energy ultimately, and that they were, but there was very much of a physical contact that I had with them.
Right. Now, since you saw them on the other side, and I'm saying the other side, but really it's not we're all energy, so it's limitless, really. Do you feel as though you sense their presence now that you came back to your body? Have you sensed them again? Have you had any dreams since then?
Haven't had any dreams, but I do sense that they're around, and they're not sort of like obviously visible to me, or in a sense where I can touch them physically. I do sense that they're there. They told me, of course, that they do watch their loved ones on Earth, and they do watch over us, try to communicate subtly with us, and so I was sort of more aware that of who they were, and that they were trying to contact me. So I did feel their presence. I didn't hear. We didn't sort of speak telepathically. I only do that with Albert, but I knew they were there, and I was quite very satisfied to know that they were happy, well looked after, and in a very good spot. And I knew that I would be reunited, sort of more or less permanently once I crossed over myself, even though I was just there temporarily on this astral trip to see them.
Right. Now, how many times did you go over? Did you leave your body and take a trip with Albert?
Oh, it was like probably a few dozen times. I haven't really added it up, but we saw a number of things on each trip. But it was probably several dozen different trips. And after every trip, Albert would bring me back before morning, and I would sort of slide back into my physical body. The next morning, I'd wake up, Lindsay, and I would remember everything about my trip with crystal clarity, like it was very vivid. And many people have said to me, are you sure you weren't just dreaming all this? And I'd say, well, no, because I've never had a dream where the memory of the dream was so vivid and clear for so long after I woke up. But these memories stayed with me for weeks and weeks and weeks while I was, and I'd wake up and I'd go to my computer and quickly type out notes about what I saw and who I talked to and what they said. And that was the basis for the manuscript of my second book. But they were very, very, those memories are very vivid and still are vivid in my mind. It was just amazing. And I would never know when Albert was coming. He wouldn't tell me when he was coming. He would just sort of show up.
Okay.
And he never told me in advance where we were going. And so we made a number of different trips to the spirit side, and then we made some trips on the physical plane to other planets and places in the universe. And so it was all designed not to entertain me, Lindsay, but to impart a message to me and my fellow humans, or to provide a nugget of wisdom. So it was all sort of a learning experience for me that I could pass on to other people in my book.
That's so amazing. What about, gosh, this is amazing. When's the last time that he took you on a outer body experience?
Well, after the first time, the first set of astral excursions, which I wrote about in Dancing Forever with Spirit, he came back a couple months after that, for another set of astral experiences, which resulted in my third book, Dance of Heavenly Bliss, which isn't published yet. It'll be released sometime in 2016. And in fact, I am starting about a couple of weeks ago. He's already started coming back for another series, which he says I will have to describe in my fourth book. So I'm sort of right in the middle of it right now.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be coming back on the show if you want to, because I'm dying to hear about those other books.
Yeah, no, I'd love to be back when the third book is out and when the fourth book's out as well. So
Amazing.
I still have contact.
Now,
I'm still having trips with him.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. I do have a question about this because it intrigues me so much. And as a little girl, I used to have these outer body experiences, and I thought that it was normal. I know we all leave our body when we're sleeping, but sometimes we don't remember certain things. But I used to travel around, and as I got older, I traveled also. And after my fiance had passed, I traveled with him and saw him in the heavenly place. But when you want to go so bad and you try so hard to get there, it's not the same. Like, I've tried to leave my body and do the meditations and want to have these outer body experiences, and I don't know if he even mentioned anything of how we can do this, or is it just something that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. We shouldn't push it.
I think the latter is correct, Lindsay. He didn't tell me sort of how other people can do it, and in fact, he didn't even tell me how I can do it when he's not there. I have to have him to sort of escort me, and I don't do it otherwise. And he didn't tell me how I should do it. And his view is that if it's meant for other people to travel astrally, it'll happen. And if it's not meant at that time, it just won't happen. So you shouldn't worry about it. It's not it's not something that everyone can do. And if you had the privilege of doing it in your past, then you're very fortunate.
Yes, yeah, and it's the most freeing feeling. You feel so free. It's like that natural state of energy that we're in.
Yeah, we're just energy beings, and when you travel astrally, you have no matter to you. You're just energy, and it's a very free feeling.
Right.
I agree.
Yes. Now, is there anything else that you learned? What about the people listening on the show? The people, some people may say, well, what can I do right now to change the energy of our Earth? Or what can I do personally to boost up my vibration? What would you suggest for them?
Well, I think it's good, first of all, for people to try to get in touch with their spirit guides, because we all have spirit guides, and they're always sending us messages to help us, improve our lives and steer us in the right direction. But their messages are usually very subtle, like flashes of intuition or whispers in our minds or gut feelings or coincidental events, things like that. And so all too often, humans tend to miss these messages because their minds are so cluttered with so many other things about what we did last week and what we're doing next month and so on. So a good thing to do is to try to, through meditation, to try to quiet our minds and get rid of the clutter so that we can hear the messages from our guides and our souls much more clearly. And that will help us to sort of figure out where we should be heading in terms of our own life path, and to the extent that we can get closer to where we had planned for ourselves before we incarnated, then we'll be happier with our own lives. But in terms of helping our fellow humans, I mean, the main thing is, first of all, we have to get our own negative emotions under control. We've got to sort of stop the fear and the anger and the hate, and we can do this by just really trying to embrace love and compassion, because if you fully embrace love, there's no room for the negative emotions. And so that in itself is the first step towards raising our vibrations. And if we can continue to do this, and it's not an easy process. It takes a long time to. I mean, as humans, we always have we naturally have negative emotions, and it's hard to control them. But that's something we need to do. And if we can embrace love and forgiveness to all other people, and to stop abusing the other animals in our planet and our planet itself with our pollution. All this will help us to become more spiritually enlightened and raise our vibrations. So that's what we need to do. And so if each of us can start off by doing that, and then try to spread the message of love and hope to other people around us, so that they can be thinking about how do I raise my vibrations and how do I make my life better and how do I make my planet better, then eventually it'll just pick up momentum and it'll all start to work. So it's a very doable thing. It's just that we have to take the time and the effort to live our own lives and encourage others to live a life of love and compassion.
Yes, that's so beautiful, and it's so true, and I love that. Now, I don't know why this is coming to me right now, but did Albert show you anything about the water on our Earth or distant planets? Did they say anything about healing water or anything about the things that are left for us here on Earth, the trees, the water, the different herbs? Do they say anything about these things are healing or anything about the power of an intention, how to heal things, heal disease or different things like that?
He didn't mention anything about the water doing that or the plants. He was very concerned, and he told me this, through many different channels, that they're really concerned about the abuse that humans heap on our planet by polluting the water and cutting down the trees and abusing the animals. And so he was very concerned that we should stop that. And the other thing that reflects about the water, maybe what you're picking up, is that he actually took me to a water planet in our galaxy, and that's described in my second book. And so this water planet is called Proteus, and he took me there, and it was totally covered in oceans. There's no land masses on this planet, and so we dropped down through the clouds underneath the surface of the water, and there the subsea environment looked very much like the oceans under Earth. And I remember snorkeling in the Caribbean and noting the sea life and the plants and so on. And the corals looked very familiar. And we actually there met up with a dolphin and a humpback whale. And they said that they told me, so we were communicating by telepathy with these two creatures. And they told me that they and the other sea life looked very familiar to me because most of the sea life that we have on Earth was originally seeded from their planet, Proteus, a long time ago. So that's why everything looks so familiar.
Wow.
And they said that the dolphins and whales on Earth are really distant relatives from these two on Proteus, and they said that they kept in telepathic contact with their cousins on Earth, and they were dismayed at what they heard because the dolphins and whales on Earth were telling them that they're tired of being hunted and trapped and killed by humans, over the years. We're doing less of that now than we had before, but there's still a lot of abuse going on. And all they wanted to do was to live in peace and harmony with humans and all the other animals on our planet, and they couldn't understand why they were getting this abuse from humans. And they had been trying to contact humans by telepathy and communicate with us, but we just weren't hearing what they were saying. And so they were very dismayed by it. Yeah, they're very dismayed by it, and they just wanted everyone to know that the dolphins and whales on our planet are very intelligent, sensitive, feeling, and emotional creatures who just want to live in peace and harmony with us, and they wanted that message to go back to my fellow humans. So that was the water planet.
Gosh.
Maybe that's what you were feeling.
Yeah, maybe that was. And I haven't read your second book, and I really want to buy it now. I need to go online and get it, definitely. But that's probably what it was that I was picking up. Now, when you were mentioning the dolphins, dolphins are so in tune and sensitive, and I know that a lot of people, kids work with dolphins, too, for therapy, whether, there's children that are blind or deaf, or there's different things that the dolphins do. Now, it's interesting because I was doing a meditation, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, and I was holding this stone. It's called Larimar crystal, and it's like a turquoise color, and I got it from Punta Cana, the Dominican Republic. I was just really drawn to it. And I knew of it as the Atlantis stone. It was known as the Atlantis stone, and it was found, I don't know if it was 20 years ago. It wasn't too long ago, maybe a little bit longer. But I was holding it meditating, and after I was done meditating, I said to my husband, it sounds crazy, but I just was told, send healing to the dolphins. So I was sending all this love to the dolphins. Well, I ended up looking up the stone after and found out the Larimar stone is actually considered the dolphin stone. So when you mentioned, the story about how they're trying to telepathically connect with us, I felt as though the dolphins were coming through and talking to me while I was doing this meditation, and I was being told to send healing. And it just reminded me of that story.
That's amazing. That's a great story, Lindsay, and it just demonstrates that they do try to contact us, except that most people don't hear it, and you were fortunate enough to actually get their message. So that's really amazing.
Yeah, I feel so grateful. Now, I have a question for you. It's kind of a personal question related to the animals because, it's been a big thing that's been coming up a lot lately, that I tried to go without eating meat Friday to Friday. It was about 2 weeks ago, my husband and I, just because we thought, maybe this isn't good energy to be eating the meat because, just thinking about the animals, we love animals, and we thought we'll just try it. Since then, we've been eating it, but we're trying not to eat as much meat. Have you found since your travel and since your, spiritual awakening, have you been eating differently or have different habits now that you came back to Earth?
Yes, and very similar to what you and your husband experienced, I have since meeting Albert, I've been eating less and less animal flesh, and I just I eat smaller quantities, don't eat it as often. I'm really trying to wean myself off of sort of red meat and just do chicken and fish, and then eventually, try to just go to seafood. Albert tells me, and this is one of the things that you probably already know, he says that animal flesh slows down the increase to our vibration rate. It doesn't stop it, but it slows us down. And he says that, in fact, once you get your vibration level up to a certain degree, you will find that eating animal flesh makes you feel ill, and you won't want to do it. And so then that just fuels the tendency to eat less and less, and that lends to increasing your vibrations. Eventually, he says, you'll just eat vegetation, and in the future, humans will just have liquid food made from plant material, and they will not consume any animal flesh. That's what's sort of laying ahead for us. Wow. But right now, I still do eat meat. I try to cut back, and I have done very well since I met Albert, but I still haven't crossed the line to become a vegetarian, even though my son and daughter-in-law are both vegetarians.
Wow.
But, the mind is willing, but the flesh is weak, Lindsay.
Yes, I know. I know when you have that taste for if it's steak or something like that, and you know what it tastes like, it can be difficult when you're so used to eating that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and I was raised on
after.
Yeah, and I've actually met some people who have read my books who have said that they are at a place where if they eat meat, they just feel ill, like it just bothers them, and they can't. They just won't eat it because it doesn't do their bodies any good. And they actually feel it physically. And so, I say to them, well, you're lucky. You're probably higher up the vibrational ladder than I am, and I hope to catch up to you someday.
I'm sure with all the information, it's probably just going to be one of those things that it's funny that it really makes you think. And when I did it from Friday to Friday, we both said it felt really different. We weren't craving meat as much after that. And then I felt like it takes a little bit longer for my body to break down the meat also. So
yeah, and I think it's a slow process that we all have a different path to get there, and it's a slow process. But I think I expect that before I leave this planet, and I'm not sure how long that'll be, is that I'll probably be a total vegetarian.
Yes. It's amazing. Now, I have one last question. I could talk forever, but I know we have some people waiting on the line for reading, so I'm going to get to them in a few minutes. But one last question is about the Akashic records. And I was just wondering, I know that you went on different adventures. Can you tell us something, even the littlest bit of information on what the Akashic records are and what you've seen with them, just for people that don't know what they are?
Yeah, well, the Akashic records are the records of every life that has ever been lived anywhere in the universe. And so Albert took me there. It's on the spirit side in a place he called it the Hall of Records. I went there, and we went into they have a bunch of viewing rooms, and I went into one room with him, and there's like a big holographic globe that was sort of floating in the middle of the room. And Albert, he knew how to run it. I didn't, but he could sort of take me to see, other segments of, he showed me a few segments of my previous lives on Earth. He showed me some segments of my current life, which would be, which he said was a preview to my life review. And, of course, when you have a life review, you get to go back over every aspect of the life you just finished, both watching it like you're watching a 3D movie, and you actually get to hear the thoughts and feel the emotions of the people you interacted with when you're having a life review. So I had that. He wanted to teach me a few things. It's in my book. So a few segments of my current life. I saw some segments of some of my past lives. Again, each one there was sort of a lesson to be learned. And he also showed me some segments of other people's lives. So you can actually, when you're over in the spirit side, you can look at all your past lives from various perspectives. You can also look at anybody else's past lives. And so I saw some of the lives from some famous people that we knew on Earth, and it was very interesting. It's the kind of place, Lindsay, you could just sort of spend forever there looking at your past lives and other people's lives, and it was very, very informative.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I'm so grateful that you've been on the show now for the second time, and I can't wait. There's so much more for us to learn from you and in your trip with Albert. Can you tell us, the people that are listening for the first time, where they can go to find your website and get information about your books?
Yes. Well, my website is garnetschulhauser.com, and that's hard to remember. So the other way of getting there is to Google "Dancing on a Stamp," which is the title of my first book, and it will take you to on the search list. Or my website will be there. On my website, there's information about both of my books. You can download a free excerpt. You can watch a book video for both books. And you can dial into my social media sites like Facebook and YouTube and Google Plus and LinkedIn for more information. And there's buy links on my website where you can just click on it to you get to all the popular online bookstores like Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it takes you right to where you can buy my books. And my email address is on my website, Lindsay. So if anyone has a question or a comment, I'd love to hear from them.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, and I know we will be in touch, and I can't wait to hear more stories with you and Albert also.
Well, thank you for inviting me on your show again, Lindsay. I look forward to the next one.
Yes, definitely. You're welcome, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
And you too, Lindsay.